Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I've got a show for you today. It's celebrating the arts, of course, and we do that a lot on this show because there's so many great artists in our communities throughout the state of Michigan and throughout the United States. My good friend, Elton Monroy Duran, who is from Detroit, not originally, but he's living there now for a number of years and he is going to be talking about all the artwork that he's been doing in Southwest Detroit. We know it as Mexican Town, and there's some really cool art work that he has been commissioned to do recently. And he had a trip to Paris. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of what he is doing currently in his life. So please join me on the live feed if you got a question or a concern. Join us because this show is about mi gente, my people, and we're talking tonight and we're celebrating Latino contributions, concerns, and culture. So please join me on Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your host, Larry Rodarte. You hear that smoothing music back there with a Latino flair? I imagine my good friend Elton Monroy Duran just painting the town in Southwest Detroit to this music. Like a Pied Piper leading the community to our cultural renaissance in Southwest Detroit. Today I've got Elton Monroy Duran. He's with me, the artist, who is commissioned to do a lot of different murals as well as alebrijes that are something new that came to Southwest Detroit this fall. And he's returning from a trip from Paris, actually, a short trip. But he's going to join us here tonight to talk about all the art that's in Mexican Town. You go to Mexican Town these days and you see all kinds of murals, and it's just wonderful to see how it has evolved in the renaissance of Detroit, the city itself. So please welcome Elton Monroy Duran to Mi Gente on Air. Hello, Elton.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Thank you for the introduction.
I am doing wonderful, my friend, and I hope all is well with you. I haven't seen you in quite a while, but I keep track of you, what's going on through Facebook and social media. So tell us about the trip to Paris, because this is something that I want my listeners to know, that you returned from Paris, a real quick trip. What was that all about?
Well, it is actually very interesting that you're asking me. Curiously, like people here in Detroit, like the media, didn't approach me yet, like to talk about it, because they, sometimes they don't see the how relevant it was, or they were actually asking me, like people were like, how was your trip to Paris? Like as if I was doing vacations, right? But
yeah.
let me tell you, it was very interesting because I received an invitation from the U.S. Embassy in Paris. Do you know people receiving an invitation like that? I don't know if you know anyone.
Yes, I have heard of that. And, Elton, Paris is my favorite city in the whole wide world. That's why I was like so into it. I went like 40 years ago for the first time and I was just blown away. So I was so happy to see that you were there. And I didn't know exactly why. And I tried to understand through the pictures. But man, to have an invitation by the U.S. Embassy, that's huge. That's huge, brother.
Exactly. Like they sent me like a letter, and like to me and to like other artists from Detroit. We were like a group of artists from Detroit representing Detroit, invited to the embassy, U.S. Embassy in Paris, and of course we were treated like wonderfully. We had a dinner with people there, and like the idea is to connect Detroit with the world stage.
Wow. The City of Lights. Yes.
The City of Lights. And, it was very interesting because, like, with all this group, I was the only Latino, the only Mexican and Latino representing Detroit.
Wow. That's just wonderful. It's it's really something because Paris, France is probably the reason why France is the most visited nation in the world. Did you know that? It's the most visited nation in the world. It's probably because
Right.
mostly because of Paris, of course, of other cities like Lourdes. But you know, everybody loves Paris, and for a number of years, it has been number one in terms of the those that are visiting Europe. And so it's nice to see that there is that connection that they want to, you know, collaborate with somebody in the Detroit area, the Detroit market, and invited Detroit artists to that area. Tell us a little bit about what did they
Well,
try to accomplish with that?
it was through Salonier. Salonier is a group here in Detroit that organizes events, including artists, and they were the ones inviting, putting this together and bringing us all the way to Paris. Like, it was a formal invitation, and we're trying to put Detroit in the map, in the world map in terms of art.
Yeah.
Like when you think about Paris and like what is relevant in Paris is art. It's like people goes there to see art. Like high quality art, and it was very interesting to be there, to go to Paris representing Detroit and the art scene in Detroit. And I never imagined, I never dreamed of having an opportunity and going there representing my community, representing our heritage, and that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, working with this community in Detroit, with the Latino community. And what if I go there, it's not only me, we're going all together.
Oh,
uh, when I was there, I was actually realizing that I am there representing all of us. And that's why to me it was very kind of like it was interesting to like have that situation of like nobody actually um asking me, like about this trip to Paris and what it means. And so what it means, like, there is actually like a short story that was written by Nuestra Cultura.
mhm.
And Angelo Cap did that, a beautiful interview, and I actually encourage people to go and read about that. And he did a wonderful story about my trip to Paris. But it's not only that, like the idea is to understand that me being in Paris is not only being me by myself, but the art that I represent, and like all the murals and all the art that I created here in Detroit was inspired by the people in Detroit and the connection to the city.
Yes, yes. Well, I did an article on Elton a number of years ago, and he was on the cover of Mi Gente magazine. And I'm talking to my listening audience that may be not familiar with Mi Gente or Mi Gente on air, but they're listening on the radio program that will be aired on Sundays. And I've also been informed that the show is going to be also aired on Saturday mornings now too. So it's to the audience, I want people to understand that this is an artist who is from Mexico originally, lived in Grand Rapids for a while, and
No,
then
I went to Grand Rapids at the beginning
mhm.
for the art prize in
Oh,
2015. I
what has it been that long? 10 years now already?
participated at the art prize,
Wow.
and
Right.
it's been 10 years since I visited Detroit for the first time.
And many of the listeners will understand what Art Prize is in terms of in Grand Rapids. And he came to Southwest Detroit, and I think at that time there was maybe when I went and actually saw him out and seen one of his murals. I think there was maybe one or two that I can remember, maybe three. But now they're all over the place, and that's wonderful to see what you have done. The one that is of the Dia de los Muertos. I don't know what you're calling that one. That's your latest one, I think. And it's is it on the building?
Oh
Pizza Bake?
no, I didn't paint that one.
Oh, that was Freddie. That was
Oh,
Freddie's. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. But I think there's a theme to all of them where it's really representing the culture of the people there.
One of the last murals that I've seen painted was at Los Galanes. And
Oh,
another local artist painted that one, and I met the artist the day that we unveiled the sculptures. He went to my studio because I offered like some, some food and a moment to celebrate. And he came over, and it was very interesting because these young artists that are creating art now in the community, they are telling me. He told me, I got a lot of inspiration from your work, and I actually, I'm realizing that I am kind of setting the ground for people to express, similar art, and
right.
elevating the community and our heritage.
Well, I remember when I met you, it was for an exhibit with the velvet paintings that Diana Rivera and Elena Herrada had put on. I believe it was next to the Welcome Center where you were painting that mural in the Welcome Center there. I just was so taken by the fact that you were painting Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera after, there was such a big emphasis on them when they had it at the DIA, and they had a play, I believe it was on the life of Frida Kahlo. So it was really interesting for me to see that. And I said, I've got to find out who this guy is. I got to find out what his story was. And it's just been wonderful to see how you have just really painted up the town. And like when you said you went to Paris and you were representing not only yourself but the art, all the artists, in Southwest Detroit. I would say in Michigan because that's a big thing, Elton. It really is because so many times we kind of get overlooked or what have you, and to be invited to Paris, France, is really an accomplishment. And I hope that you're very proud of yourself for that and what you've done in the last 9 to 10 years in Southwest Detroit, because it
You
really is
know,
an accomplishment.
it seems easy, but I literally invested the last 10 years of my life in Detroit. I was when I lived Mexico, I was actually pursuing my dream, of becoming an artist and like creating a career, and I was able to do it here in specifically in Southwest Detroit.
Yeah.
Not only in Detroit, but like in this community, this Latino community in Southwest Detroit, in the Mexican town area, and I was able to receive a lot of support from my people, from mi gente,
Yeah.
and um, I wouldn't be in the place that I am today, like without all the support of the people. I received last year a Kresge Fellowship Award, also that is like like big, a big recognition in the
Yes.
art scene here in Detroit. And in my speech, I was actually expressing that, like I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be on that stage without the support of my people. They've been the ones commissioning me these murals, this art, and like now, having those sculptures, like I don't know if people understand what that means, but I came from Mexico as an immigrant,
Yeah.
pursuing a dream, and I've been working with this community, the Latino communities, providing me with the tools, like financially, and also with the inspiration and like the motivation and that's the stories, all the information that I need to create the body of work that I have been creating. And I've been painting murals on buildings, on buildings that belong to someone, and those buildings belong to an organization or to a business, and they are providing the funding for me to do that work. But these sculptures, the sculptures that I just unveiled, um, they are not in someone's wall, they are on the street. It's
Yes.
like art
Yes.
on the street.
Okay.
And
Let,
for
let,
me,
let's talk about that real quick because I want my producer to show the different pictures of the artwork that is what Elton's referring to on the streets in Southwest Detroit, and primarily right there by Mexican Town Bakery, is it? Or what?
the sculptures are between on Bagley Street,
Mm-hmm.
between 24th Street and the 75 Service Drive. You
Okay.
know, that portion is recognized as the commercial corridor in Mexican town. There's a lot of businesses and restaurants. People goes there to to have the experience of Mexican town, and that was actually very important that those sculptures were going to be displayed on that street, like on Lavagli, because Lavagli at some point back in the time used to be the heart of the community. That's where most of the Latinos and Mexican people during the 1920s and 30s established. They made that street their own, and they transformed that street into the heart of the community. And actually, they used to call it La Bagli, with the prefix La, La, to refer at la calle, and la calle Bagli, La Bagli. So, that street is very significant for this community, because actually it was at some point the heart of the community, but also it was divided and swept away by the construction of the 75 freeway in the 1950s. And that was, something that affected, the community and its development, like highly during that time. But we're resilient. This community was very resilient, and then because they swept away the heart of the community in La Bagli, they moved down to La Vernor, and now La Vernor is like becoming, a hub for businesses and this commercial corridor, like a bigger one, But also that portion of Bagley Street is very symbolic. It's very symbolic of the resilience of the community, and actually it's called Mexican Town.
Now, what you're referring to there, the businesses that are around there is Bagley is like Los Galanes.
Los Galanes is there, Xochimilcos,
La
Gloria, El Popo, La Michoacana, Lupitas. There's like, you name it. There's like Ibis Tamales.
Xochimilco's gift store is there, and that's where you have your Frida wall.
It is Xochi's gift shop.
Yes.
They sell only imports from Mexico. Everything they sell there was made in Mexico.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I'm trying to get my listeners to understand that the actual location of the area where this artwork is, and what are they actually called? Alebrijes.
They're called alebrijes, and this. It is a big achievement. It's a very important piece of art that I was creating, and I decided to create these alebrijes because people, people know this. Everybody knows the movie Coco, right?
Right.
And you can see the representation of this art expression in these animals that are the guides in the underworld, and they were referring like very ancient idea, but actually they are very contemporary. The original artist that created those animal looking like sculptures was Pedro Linares, and Pedro Linares did that after a fever. He had a fever and some like nightmares or dreams, and in those dreams he saw those figures, those animals, and he was listening to this word alebrijes, and then when he was feeling better, he started making those things that he saw out of paper mache, and then decorating them with colorful patterns and stuff. But now entire towns in Mexico, they are living out of creating alebrijes as a type of folk art, like in Oaxaca.
Yeah.
And to me, alebrijes are a reflection of the contemporary Mexicans, because we actually come from a fragmented culture that was dismantled at some point, and we're trying to piece it back together. We've been kind of recreating our own identity, and then we try to decorate it with cheerful intentions, and how we are. So to me, alebrijes are kind of like a reflection of the contemporary Mexicans, and those Mexicans are the ones who migrated up north to work at the auto industry. So that's why I was creating those sculptures out of car parts. I was using car parts from Detroit to create those alebrijes and create like this connection between the Mexican people arriving to Detroit and their contributions to the Motor City.
Wow, that is really interesting, and I'm so glad I had you on the show to explain all that. Matthew, can you show those again? Because one of them, you can actually see the car parts in it. I don't know if you have specific names for them, like this one here.
That's a wolf, and when you come and see the sculptures in real life, you're gonna see that I was using a lot of little parts, and my intention was not to only use the metal as material, but to me it was important to preserve the design of the parts itself. So when you see those sculptures, you're gonna be able to recognize the car parts, and then of course they're creating a sculpture, like you can see the wolf, but also if you look carefully, you're going to be able to see different car parts that are used to put it together, and
symbolic of Detroit. Yes,
symbolic of Detroit and the Motor City. That was the idea.
Now the next one is a very beautiful piece. A lion. Does that have anything to do with the Detroit Lions?
That's a big cat, because it's like the Detroit cat, and we have in Detroit not only the lions, but we have the tigers,
Yeah.
And the thing is that we have a lot of street cats also in Detroit. Is that like being in Detroit and not seeing cats is kind of weird, the cat is a symbol of Detroit also. So I wanted to create this big cat, and something interesting about this cat is that on the back of the car of this sculpture is made out of Model E A fenders on the back, and then I really wanted to use Model T fenders to do the wings. And do you know where I found those Model T fenders?
Where?
In Saginaw.
No.
All the way to Saginaw to get those parts. So I started looking online, because I wanted to I was looking specifically for those iconic parts. To me, it was very important to incorporate the Model T parts into the sculptures. And I was actually not aware that the Model T fenders were the perfect wings. I didn't do anything. Like I bent a little bit of a corner of the fender, but those fenders are placed like intact and creating like beautiful wings. And if you understand the symbolism of that, Model T was the car that changed the world. Like the world that we know was changed because of the implementation of the assembly line, and the mass production was born. And like the Model T was built from 1908 to 1927. The first group of Mexicans arrived to Detroit in 1919, between 1919 and 1920, which means they were working for at least 8 years building the Model T. So those Mexicans were part of that moment that changed the world. And we don't even know if those fenders were pressed by a Mexican, at the assembly line. So, and wings, symbolize this idea of like not only freedom but dreaming, flying, the future, and imagine that these sculptures take off and fly over Detroit or like fly to the future. That is very symbolic. And so this piece of art to me is very important, but like the masterpiece that not a lot of people know about is actually a documentary film that I'm doing. When I started the project, I realized that was a really good story to tell, because when I am telling you right now what was the inspiration and the motivation to create these sculptures, then we're talking about the impact and the influence of the Mexican people in Detroit, and that's what inspired me to create these sculptures. So I was thinking, what, I need to document this. And I've been doing a series of interviews. I've been recording the process of construction of these pieces. And the masterpiece is going to be the film. The film is in the middle.
Well, it's really something, because it sounds like like almost a story like of Diego Rivera when he did the murals over at the DIA, and how he incorporated Detroit, and he was commissioned to do that. And so it's like you are the contemporary Diego Rivera of Southwest Detroit. Isn't that something?
I had a dream, like when I recently arrived to Detroit, like the first couple of months when I was painting during the winter.
Yeah.
I had a very weird dream, and during that dream, Diego Rivera was shaking my hand.
Wow, that's incredible. You know what? We're going to go into a break real quick, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk more about your dream with Diego Rivera and Mi Gente on air.
Sounds good.
Wow, Elton, we're on the live stream still. What a beautiful story. This is definitely going to be a story in Mi Gente, the magazine as well, because it's really telling, firsthand from the artist himself about what he's accomplishing and what he has been inspired to do. And I want to know what you've been eating and what are you drinking over there that really is inspiring you so beautifully. Maybe it's all the cultural food that's there, right? Because they have some of the best food in the state.
Like really, when I say I love this community, that I love this community, I really mean that, because everything I do is for the community and it comes from the community. If I am able to create this body of work that is putting me on the stage and that is putting me on the position that I am right now, is because of the people here, and I feel really blessed that I, when I was looking to develop my career, that I came to this community. It wasn't my plan, but I feel blessed that I did it. And I was telling you, it's been 10 years.
Yeah,
it's some time. So my investment is giving already some fruits, and I am not where I am where I want to be, but I think I'm in the right place.
I think so too. Well, we're gonna go back into the show, and we're gonna talk all about this and more. Mi Gente on air. Don't go away, anybody, and join us. If you got a question or a concern, feel free to put it in the chat room, and we'll bring it up in the show as well. So we're returning back to Mi Gente on air.
You're listening to Mi Gente on air on WSGW.
Welcome back to Mi Gente on air. Thank you for being with us here tonight on this show that is celebrating Latino culture. And we've got a great artist who is really painting up the town in Southwest Detroit. And he's telling us some great stories. He didn't always know why he was kind of sent to Detroit the way he was. And, he's just envisioning within himself now kind of the full picture, and he's probably got so much more to do. And tell us a little bit about that, Elton. Do you think that had you stayed in Mexico itself, would you have had the career that you are having in Mexican Town here in Detroit?
For sure not.
No.
I'm certain that no. And like there's a saying in Mexico, nadie es profeta en su propia tierra. Nobody's a prophet in their own land.
Right.
And I had a feeling that I needed to leave. I needed to go, and my intention was moving to Europe. I wanted to go to Berlin, in Germany. But on the way there, I came to visit Detroit, and I got stuck here. But then later, something that was very, very interesting is that I realized that my destiny was already connected to Detroit since before I was born, because my dad used to work in an assembly line in Mexico. Back in the time, he was like around 18 or 19 years old, and he had a friend back in the time, and this friend was trying to convince him to come to Detroit, like many years ago, like over 40, like 46, 47 years ago. And so my dad just met my mom over there in Ciudad Sagun, in my hometown, and he decided to stay because he wanted to stay with my mom. So his friend came to Detroit 47 years ago, and just 10 years ago, this old friend came back to Mexico, and he met my dad again, and that was my opportunity to come and visit Detroit. But then I realized, my dad was back in the time working in an assembly line. When I grew up, I was, my dad used to repair cars. He had a repair shop, cars in car repair shop in Mexico, and I used to help him. So I grew up, fixing cars with my dad. So I know how to weld, how to grind. I know how to use those tools that are used to build cars. So, if people think like I'm here in Detroit, making sculptures out of car parts because I'm in Detroit is trendy, they are wrong. I grew up, working on cars since I was in Mexico. So my entire life, I've been passionate about cars and about tools. And it's kind of like a full circle, because that influence came from Detroit to the world, and then I am coming back to Detroit where everything started.
Yeah, what a story. And a few years back, you did I think it was in 2019, just before COVID. You did a mural on the artist Sisto Rodriguez. I almost said Orozco. And since then he has passed. Can you tell us just a little bit about that one? Because that one, it's very overpowering. I see it, when I see it, I'm like, wow.
Larry,
so
you,
cool.
you don't really know. You don't understand. When I came here, I was looking for inspiration. I was looking to build my career. Everything in Detroit, everything, like the people in Detroit, gave me all that inspiration, gave me all the motivation to create artwork. So the first time I came in 2014 was during the winter, and one of the first persons that I met here was Maria Hayes. It's very interesting because Maria Hayes was the owner of Nuestro Detroit newspaper that shut down during the pandemic. But I met her, and we became very good friends ever since. She was one of the first persons I met here in Detroit, and I am telling you this because she comes from Mexico City, and is very close from where I come from in Mexico, like an hour far away. So we have the same accent, and we have the same taste for food, the same taste for music. We understand each other very well. So she told me, have you heard about Sixto Rodriguez? And I was like, I don't have idea. And then she's like, he just won an Oscar. Like, he's a Mexican from Detroit who won an Oscar in 2013, for a documentary film, Searching for Sugarman. I mean, he's a big deal. She was telling me, I was like, I don't have idea. So she introduced me to Sixto Rodriguez music. So I'm gonna tell you this: Sixto Rodriguez music was my soundtrack when I was painting the first, series of paintings that I did in Detroit during the sorry about that, the winter. Sixto Rodriguez music was my inspiration. So I never thought about the idea of connecting with Sixto later. Yeah. I wanted to paint a mural for Sixto, and then the opportunity came, and it was very interesting because when the building owner approached me to do the project, he was telling me he had a very low budget to do it. And then he was telling me, I want to paint a mural for Sixto. My building doesn't have a lot of wall because it's mostly windows. There is a little portion. And then he was telling me, do you think you can do something in that little portion? And I was like, what are you talking about? It's a mural for Sixto Rodriguez. I'm going to use the entire building. So I created a composition, including the windows on the building and everything. And the interesting thing and the very curious thing is that I didn't know, I wasn't aware that Sixto Rodriguez family used to live in that building, and
Wow.
that was the reason why they reach out to me. And Sixto wanted to see the mural on his birthday, so I finished the mural on Sixto's birthday so that he can come and see the mural finished. And ever since, we became very good friends, and we were invited to his house. I'm in contact with Sixto's daughters, and it's been just amazing, an amazing uh, you know story here in Detroit.
And I remember him, 20, 25 years ago, probably, when I actually lived in the Detroit, Metro Detroit. And I would go into Southwest Detroit, and he was walking around carrying his guitar. When we would drop off Mi Gentes, I would see him, I mean, winter, summer, whatever time period it was, Cecil was walking around in Southwest Detroit. So it's really, he really was an icon of that community. And to get the recognition that he did later, with Searching for Sugar Man, was really a wonderful documentary. So happy to see that it won the
Are
Oscar.
you kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's like a Mexican from Southwest Detroit, a Mexican from Mexican town in Detroit, won an Oscar. He won an Oscar for the documentary film, but the influence and the impact that his music created in other places of the world is amazing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a testament of our power. That's a testament of our creative spirit. And we have that in our blood and in our essence.
And for the listeners out there that may not know what we're talking about, Sisto Rodriguez was a folk artist out of Detroit, and in the '60s, he produced some album that went international and became a huge hit in South Africa. And he was looked upon through many years, and he didn't even know it at the time, that he was like an Elvis Presley in South Africa. And through this documentary, these series of filmmakers, they brought his story to life, and he was able to actually see what an impact he had on the world, especially even during apartheid and all that movement. So
A wonderful story, and actually, he recorded two albums. The one was called Cold Fact, and the second one was Coming from Reality. They are amazing, beautiful, beautiful music, very inspiring, and very Detroit. Because all the stories that he was presenting through the songs were portraying a reality in Detroit back in the time.
yeah, yeah. Well, we could talk about Sisto forever, but this show's more about you. But that is it's such a beautiful mural. If anybody hasn't seen that, you've got to look it up and find the location, because Elton did a wonderful job with that mural as well, like all the other ones, of course. What are you working on currently?
Well, I'm finishing up some projects. I'm blessed with the opportunity of painting murals, and I'm trying to wrap up a couple projects before the winter is here completely. Because when it is cold, I cannot paint outside anymore. So I'm trying to hurry, and like for the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna be painting outside. Got a couple murals that I need to finish. But then I open up the studio, Corpus Art Studio, as Mercado. And once the weather is not allowing me to work outside, I'm gonna be focusing on programming activities for the studio, because the reason I secured the space is that Living Arts was using the building before, and that used to be the art studio for Living Arts. So when they moved out of the building, the risk was that studio space was going to be transformed in something else. And actually, people, Ray Lozano was telling me that some people, like a company, like staffing company, was interested in renting the space, and it was going to be transforming something different. So that was my motivation to say, like, wait, maybe I can just keep it as a studio space, as an art studio space. And we came up with an agreement, and I took on the responsibility. So now we kept the space as a space for art in the community, and now my commitment is to create like the programming and transform that into space for people, not only for youth, but my intention is to attract the corporate world. to be my customers.
Yeah.
I've been doing things like with LinkedIn, Campbell Ewell, and like with the universities, and this I call them painting parties. So they come to the studio, they have the experience of decorating canvases that we draw, and the idea is for them to have like a cultural experience, because we customize the canvases, we put like alebrije, looking like drawings or Day of the Dead inspiration drawings, and then we have a screen, and they can see videos, explaining what alebrijes are, and like all the story, and how they're connected with this community. I don't know. I'm just trying to create more as a experience instead of just like a painting party. I
Yeah.
want people to understand and learn about the community too.
Tell my listeners, kind of from your perspective, the definition of algebrije, because yes, we have what Elton is referring to is in the movie Coco. There was a number of different what would you call those spiritual guides that were coming into the movie that were in the shape of animals, if anybody remembers, and they were flying around, and he has done a wonderful job in his artwork sculpture paintings that are in Southwest Detroit now. But I want to hear from your perspective what your definition is.
Yeah. Like during that movie in Coco, Disney was transforming the concept into something a little bit different, and it has kind of like a connection, like to some ancient concepts.
Mhm.
These guides, like the spiritual guides, after people's already gone, they are supposed to be the guides. But the alebrijes, as we know them, more contemporary, were created by Pedro Linares. Like these are
Yeah.
they are like animal looking like figures made out of different animal parts. Different animal parts, and it's kind of like a creature that is not exactly like a cat or a dog, but it's like a dog with a like a fish tail, for example, like with horns, like they are transformed into something different because they are actually animals made out of different animal parts. I wanted to transform that concept into animals made out of different car parts, auto parts, to
Yeah.
create the connection with Detroit.
Mhm.
And of course, I wanted to kind of like resemble animals, and not exactly creatures, but animals, so that we have this understanding, like that it is something specifically made out of car parts, but like resembling an animal, like a cat or a wolf, a dog, a donkey, and
How
actually
many how many did you actually do over there?
five. We have
Five
five:
of 'em? All right, all right. Yeah.
a giraffe, a donkey, a dog, and a wolf. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Four of the animals are connected to like the Mexican influence, like the big cat, and also because we have the jaguar in our culture, and the donkey, is like we have a in Mexico festivals dedicated to the donkeys,
Mm.
and then we have the Choloscuincle, the Mexican dog, and the wolves, and I included the giraffe out of consideration for the African community here in Detroit. Of course.
Wow, you've thought of everything. I wanted to ask you when you mentioned about Saginaw and part of the sculpture with the cat had the wing. Where did you get that Model T wing from?
So, I was actually looking to get Model T parts, and I was looking in internet, and I saw that someone was offering Model T, like Model T parts, all the way to Saginaw. And the thing is that there was like a auto shop, like a mechanic shop, and
Mhm.
the owner passed away. And he had actually he used to work on that type of cars, and he had a big collection of car parts and tools, but they were interested in selling the property, so they were trying to clear out the space, and they were like literally like giving away the stuff, and I was like, I need to I need to go and get those parts. So I actually went like I think 4 times, with my van full of car parts and tools. So I have, I of course I got parts to work on the alebrijes, but I also have enough parts to put together a Model T car.
uh,
From to the
yeah.
wheel to the fenders, like everything. So I'm planning on putting together a hot rod or something like that.
Wow. Wow. A chitty chitty bang bang car. That's kind of how that I remember the old movie that it was kind of that concept and idea. I want my producer to show one of the pictures that I just sent. If you remember this, Elton, see if you do.
Oh yeah, that was like I made it to the cover.
Yeah, look at the year 2018.
2018. Yes.
Wow. So it's been
Dude, I didn't have so much gray hair. I was younger.
it's such a great shot too. I mean, it shows such positivity, and you're standing in front of one of the murals that's over there. I
Yeah,
forgot the store. What's the store's name?
yeah, no, yeah,
Yes, You did the big mural there with
I did
Cinco de
the
Mayo.
mural, depicting the Cinco de Mayo parade, our celebration here in Detroit.
Yeah, yeah. So how many murals have you actually done now there in the Southwest Detroit area?
Close to 30 murals so far.
Are you kidding me? I thought you were going to say like 10, and you've done 30.
30, I think like close to 30. Things, some of them are private, some of them are public. But I painted, like, there is these mezcal restaurants. Mezcal has like 3 restaurants, one in Midtown, one in Ferndale, and one in Dearborn now. So I decorated all the 3 restaurants with alebrijes, actually, for mezcal. So I painted a bunch of murals there for them. But like a lot of business owners, I just painted one for Mexican Town Bakery. And, like the back of the bakery, I just painted a big mural there. And I'm telling you, the businesses here are my clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna have to go see that one. I wasn't aware of that one, and I'm trying to think of the owner there of Mexican Town, Omar Hernandez. Yeah, he's a friend of mine too. I haven't seen him. Since COVID, it seems like I lost that connection in Detroit because I used to go
You don't
quite
come
a
to
bit.
Detroit very often.
Well, I know, I do, and I come and go, but I tried to like the last time I was there, I did see Freddie's mural, that one, and that was new, and I was like, wow, when did that pop up? But yeah, I gotta start coming more and more to Detroit. But as I'm getting older, it's a little bit more difficult. But I'm gonna have to go and see that mural because that's not your biggest one. Your biggest one is behind the State Farm Insurance, right?
Well, that's the one that people likes a lot,
Yeah.
And of
What do
course,
you call that one?
that one is called the Dream Picker. And
Yes.
you are saying the big one because the intention of the composition, that composition is a composition that is monumental. I wanted to create like a monumental look, but it's actually not as big. The way I created the composition, make it look even bigger. Because the composition was with this idea of like looking monumental. But if you look carefully, you only see half of the body of the character there. But the angle that you are looking at is making it look even bigger. And that the idea was that, look, say I'm representing a Mexican immigrant in like picking apples in Michigan,
Yes.
picking corn. And to me, I wanted to create a monumental representation of an immigrant.
Well, in Saginaw here, there's an organization called the Great Mural Project, and for a long time, there was real resistance towards murals and artists to paint, and I know this for a fact. And I'd say in the last maybe 5 to 8 years, the Great Mural Project has really made a difference where there are big murals that are popping up all over now, and it's really nice to see. And then have you had a chance to see the silos that were done recently by the sprinklers?
You were actually sharing those, and very excited. And of course, it's super exciting. I like to see, the environment being transformed through art. It actually creates an impact on people.
Yeah. Well, I think the economic impact that it had just to the businesses in Old Town Saginaw is a result of people coming in and it's like a tourist attraction now, and I don't think Saginaw really had any tourist attraction outside of Frankenmuth, but it's nice to, see so many people that every time I go to those silo murals, there's always people from out of town that are looking at the murals, and it's just a really nice addition to Saginaw.
That's just one of the ways communities get impacted, by creating art. But like the one that I love the most is the emotional impact. When
Yeah.
and I see that like very, very often. People is telling me how they feel when they see my murals. They feel proud, that they feel happier, that they feel hopeful, and that impact, that motivation, and that changes, many, many, many things in society. Because when you have someone who is happy, who is inspired, creating like working or creating a change, you might have the opportunity to create greater change.
Yes, absolutely. And as we go out on the show, we've got a minute and a half here. I just want to tell my listeners, go to Southwest Detroit from Saginaw here. It's only 90 miles, I think. And you will really be immersed in some beautiful artwork there that several artists are doing murals there, and Elton's leading the pack. And I can't believe you got 30 murals over there, but it's just really beautiful because you could just do a tour of his work.
Tours.
Yes, and he does tours if you want to get a hold of him too. I mean, because I'm telling you, you will really be inspired and it will make you happy, as he says. And it's just wonderful to see. And I'm so glad the Alebrijes are also included now in the Bagley Street corridor there, which I call. And, it's just along with the businesses, the stores, and oh my gosh, the food of Southwest Detroit and the food trucks are wonderful as well. So when you get a chance, go to Southwest Detroit.
It's very important,
Yes. Well, Elton, thank you so much for being with us again. This is the second time you've been on my show, and I am just really, honored to have you because I think you are really a legend in the making in Southwest Detroit, and I'm so glad that I got to meet you and know you and sought you out, and that you're contributing in such a positive way. So thank you. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Larry. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, we'll talk again, and tune in next week on Mi Gente on Air. Any last words, Elton, as we're on the live stream here to going out of the show?
I wanted to mention, like the connection with Saginaw was very important, and it was very interesting to find out that a lot of the people in Saginaw, their like the grandparents came from Detroit, like
Yeah.
there's a connection. And I went to look for the Model T parts all the way to Saginaw, and I am very good friend with Angelo Cap. We were working on the Chicano History Week, and I really appreciate all the things that people is doing in Saginaw, and like how they want to highlight the community and the Latino people.
It's funny that you mentioned Angelo Cap. I knew him very young. I knew his grandparents. I knew his mother when we were teens. And it's funny because when I was around maybe 19, 20 years old, his grandmother, who he actually lived with and took care of till the end of her life, she asked me to paint her bedroom.
Oh, really?
I actually painted her bedroom for her because nobody else would, and she wanted her bedroom painted. I said, I'd do it for you, Mrs. Cap.
Wonderful.
Yeah, isn't that something that we kind of come?
It just shows how we're all connected. Like we're a big family. That's the thing. We're a big family, and I am saying we because that's how I feel. I feel like I'm here with my family. Like this community became my family, and I really love them. And we're all connected, and we have that idea of supporting each other. That is part of our support system, and our values.
Yeah. All right, Elton. Well, thank you again for being on the show tonight, and I'll give you a ring when I get to Detroit.
Sounds good. We need to take photos together at the Liberty.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do it pretty soon too, before winter hits.
All right,
man. Thank you so much again, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Elton Monroy Duran from Mexico, now living and is a part of the big Southwest Detroit community. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in here on Mi Gente on Air. Adios.
Adios.